Today we're going to talk about compound events. So lesson 4 in chapter 15 for advanced or lesson 4 in chapter 10 for regular math. So the set of all possible outcomes of one or more events is called the sample space. You can use tables and tree diagrams to find the space of two or more events. So tree diagram is going to look like it has branches. So we're going to see what one of those would look like in just a second. So what if the pizza shop adds a deep dish crust? Find the sample space. How many pizzas are possible? So right now we see that they have two crust options, thin crust and stuffed crust, and they have 4 styles. So if we add a deep dish crust, we now need to find out how many possible combinations of pizza we could have. So we could have a thin crust pizza, we could have a stuffed crust pizza, or we could have a deep dish pizza. Now, for each of those, we have 4 style choices. So each of these is going to have 4 branches: Hawaiian, Mexican, pepperoni, and veggie. And I'm just going to abbreviate here to save time. So here you can see that with each of the 3 crust options, there are 4 different style or topping options, which means that there are 4 types of pizza with thin crust, 4 types of pizza with stuffed crust, and 4 types of pizza with deep dish crust. Therefore, there are 12 different styles of pizzas possible. Another way to find the total number of possible outcomes is to use the fundamental counting principle. So the fundamental counting principle says an event M has M possible outcomes. An event N has N possible outcomes. The total number of outcomes of event M followed by event N is M times N. So this is just saying that we can multiply the possibility of the outcomes to find our sample space, the total outcomes that there could be. So find the total number of possible outcomes of spinning the spinner and choosing a number 1 through 5. So we know that spinning a spinner has 4 possible outcomes. We know that spinning or choosing a number 1 through 5 has 5 possible outcomes: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4 possible outcomes for the spinner, 5 outcomes for choosing a number, so 12 possible outcomes. Now, the same thing for the next one. Go ahead and try this next one on your own. With this next one, how many different outfits can you make from 4 t-shirts, 5 pairs of jeans, and 5 pairs of shoes? We know for t-shirts that there are 4 possibilities. For jeans, there are 5 possibilities. And for shoes, there are 5 possibilities. 4 times 5 times 5 is 100. So there are 100 possible outcomes. And you could do this with as many events as you need necessary. So here we see that this was a combination of 2 events. Here we have 3, and you can do this with as many as you would need. A compound event consists of 2 or more events. As with a single event, the probability of a compound event is the ratio of the number of favorable outcomes to the number of possible outcomes. So let's take a look at some compound events. So here it says in example 2, what is the probability of rolling at most 4 and flipping heads? So we can write this as the probability of at most 4. So that's less than or equal to 4, and the probability of heads. So if we think about this, we know that at most a 4 on a die, so 6 numbers, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 out of 6 times flipping heads. Well, there are 2 sides to the coin and 1 is heads, so 1 out of 2. And we can multiply. 4 times 1 is 4 and 6 times 2 is 12. And then we would want to reduce. So the probability of this happening is 1 out of 3 times. Now for number 5, in example 5, what is the probability of flipping at least 2 tails? So the probability of at least, so greater than or equal to 2 tails, is equal to, we know that there are 8 possible outcomes. So from this tree diagram, there are 8 possible outcomes. How many of those have at least 2 tails? So they circled some different ones for the example 5, but let's go and look at which ones have 2 tails. So here, heads, tail, tail, that's 2 tails. Here, tails, head, tails has 2 tails. Tails, tails, head has 2 tails. And tails, tails, tails have 3 tails, which is more than or equal to 2. So here we can see that there are 4 possible outcomes, or 4 favorable outcomes, 4 favorable outcomes that have at least 2 tails. So 4 out of 8 is equal to 1/2. So the probability of this happening is 1/2. Now in number 6, you rolled 2 number cubes. What is the probability of rolling double 3s? So this will be the probability of a 3 and a 3. So the probability of a 3 and a 3, the first time, it's 1 out of 6. 1, 3 out of 6 sides. Again, the second time, 1 out of 6. So the probability of this happening is 1 in 36 rolls. Now, for number 7, in example 1, what is the probability of choosing a stuffed crust Hawaiian pizza? So going all the way back, to example 1, we had 2 crust options and 4 style options. So we had a 1 out of 2 chance. So probability of stuffed crust and Hawaiian. We had a 1 out of 2 chance of picking stuffed crust and a 1 in 4 chance of picking Hawaiian. So my probability here would be 1/8.